Here's a crazy question for you. What if this year is the time period that your future self, 10 or 15 years down the road, will look back on and say, that was the season when it all began. The transformation in my career, the growth in my business, the change in my life. That was the time when it all began. Not in spite of the global dumpster fire we all know as the COVID-19 pandemic, but actually because of it. Sounds crazy, I know, but what if it isn't? What if it isn't? During a plague epidemic sweeping across Europe back in 1665, all the universities in London and England as a whole and most of Europe had all been canceled and all their students got sent home, including an undistinguished math student named Isaac Newton. One day, Newton is out at his boyhood home sitting in the backyard and he sees an apple fall from a tree. And voila, just like that, the idea that would eventually become the theory of gravity is born. And in his spare time during that same season of quarantine, just for good measure, Newton also invented calculus, revolutionized the telescope, and binge-watched every season of Downton Abbey on Netflix. Never before and never again would Isaac Newton produce such an explosion of innovative work. Guys, that is not a coincidence. Modern neuroscience shows that strange and unexpected changes act like an alarm clock that wakes up creative superpowers in our brains that most of us frankly didn't even know that we had. See, it works like this. In normal times, when the things around us make sense, our brains operate on default mode. We wake up, we go to the office, we take the kids to school, we go to the gym, the grocery store, or we take the kids to soccer practice, we see friends, we follow a routine. But all of a sudden, when we aren't allowed to go to the office anymore, or when people at the grocery store start dressing like Bane from The Dark Knight Rises,
this great city, it will endure.
Or when we struggle to make sense of how someone slurping down a bowl of bat soup in rural China suddenly made the old neighborhood start to resemble the set of a zombie apocalypse movie, all of a sudden our brains shift from default mode into exploration mode. They go into hyperspeed to figure out what's going on. And the reason why is basic evolution. In order for our cave-dwelling ancestors to have survived out on the savannas, they basically, every rustling in the bushes, every abnormally long dry season, every change in their external environment demanded an immediate creative response.
How's she look?
Great.
You see, Newton had seen an apple fall from a tree hundreds of times before. I mean, he literally grew up with an apple orchard in his backyard. But it wasn't until the confusing, frustrating, frightening absurdity of a sudden plague epidemic that Newton's newly unleashed creative superpowers finally connected the dots between a falling apple and the force of gravity. And for the rest of his life, Newton would refer to this year as his year of wonders. His year of wonders. Yeah, you heard me correctly. The exact same time period that everyone else in the world called the Great Plague. Not just any old plague, not a run-of-the-mill average plague, but the Great Plague, Newton referred to as his year of wonders. His year of wonders. What if you are right in the middle of your year of wonders right now? Not in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic, but because of it. What if this is the year that your future self will look back on 10 years down the road and say, that was the time, that was the season, that was the disruption that gave me the idea for the wildly successful business I have today? Or that was the time when I woke up to the potential I didn't even know I had. That was the year when I finally decided to create the exciting and meaningful life that I had always dreamed about. You see, all those little insights you've been having about the way you communicate with your teammates and your family members, all those little disruptions to the way that you make, sell, and distribute your product or your service, all those little changes to your daily routines and your work habits, those are the seeds of transformation that are being planted right now during this season of change. Your only job now is to be vigilant, to pay attention when you start to see signs that one of those seeds might be sprouting. Because as the great sage Ferris Bueller once said,
life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
don't miss it. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. In the days and weeks and months ahead, just be on the lookout. The next time that crazy idea pops into your head about your next career move, or about the class you've been thinking about taking, or that other move you've been thinking about making, instead of immediately just trashing the idea and racing back to the way things used to be, to get back to the life that you used to have a year ago, try instead pouring a little water on the seed and just see if it grows. Because believe me when I tell you, there has never been and may never be again a better time to let your brain think big than right now. This is it. This is the time. And who knows, with a little care, a little watering, a little nurturing, this might just end up being your year of wonders. Think about that. That's a pretty good prop.